All right, Tennessee, I'm calling on all of you, every citizen in the state. If you're a patriot, if you're a citizen and you're tired of our broken and corrupt government, if you care about the government that your children will live under, I ask you, give me just a couple of minutes of your time. And I'm asking you to stand with me in this simple and lawful demand of government reform by petition, by address. My name is John Gentry. I'm a certified public accountant and a Force Recon Marine, and I care very deeply about my fellow man and about this republic and having a proper form of government. So what I'm asking is for you to sign a petition with me asserting your constitutional rights to reform the government and to do that by petition, by address. This is what our founders would have done if they were faced with the corrupt government that is so prevalent, not just in Tennessee, but across this entire nation. This is absolutely what they would have done. There's nothing radical about doing a petition. It is a lawful way to approach the government and say, you know, we are asserting our right to reform, and the need for reform is absolutely essential and necessary and obvious. It is absolutely obvious with the pretended acts of legislation, with the fact that they oppress this constitutional right. Most citizens don't even know that they have a right to petition the government and what that means. And I'm going to walk you through really quick here, and then I'm going to show you on my website the document that I want you to sign. We're going to take back Tennessee. We are going to take back our government and restore the intent of the founders of this country. And we're going to do this lawfully and peacefully. And they're going to have to listen to us, because we're going to have thousands, tens of thousands, I hope hundreds of thousands of Tennesseans are going to take a stand with me and say, we've had enough of these judges that have no oversight. We've had enough of these continued acts of pretended legislation that are put in place to eat out our substance, to protect corruption of state officials, and to benefit special interests and not the people. We've had enough of that. And so I'm asking you to take a stand with me. I'm going to share my screen and walk you through what I'm talking about here. So just really quick here. All right, so you can see my screen. This is the Tennessee Constitution. And in Article 1, Section 1, all power is inherent in the people, and all three governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. And for the advancement of those ends, they have at all times an unalienable and indefeasible right to reform, alter, or abolish the government in such manner as they may think proper. So a lot of people mispronounce this and they say unalienable. It's unalienable. And that means, you know, think about a lien on property, but it can't be sold and it can't be transferred. That's the legal definition of unalienable. And indefeasible means that it can't be violated under any pretense. So we have this right. We just need to assert it. And I don't want to alter the government. The government is, and a proper government is laid out in our constitutions and in our federal and state constitution. And in Tennessee, Thomas Jefferson said, we have the least imperfect and the most Republican of all constitutions. And I think he was talking about the federal constitution as well. Tennessee has a great constitution. I don't want to alter it. The Constitution establishes our form of government. Don't want to change that a bit. And I certainly don't want to abolish the government. We need a proper government to ensure for our peace, safety, and happiness. But absolutely, I want to reform government because they are so corrupt right now with no oversight of the judiciary and the legislative houses enacting pretended legislation. So how do we do this? How do we reform our government? It's in Article 1, Section 23, that citizens have a right. And a right is something that cannot be violated. These rights pre-exist the Tennessee Constitution. These are natural and human rights. The Constitution does not grant these rights. The Constitution merely protects and affirms that these rights are retained by the people. I think that's a very common misunderstanding that people have, that the Constitution gives us rights. No, it doesn't. These are God-given human rights. But we have a right to instruct our representatives and to apply to the powers of the government for redress of grievance or other proper purpose by address. This says of remonstrance. The true language of the actual Constitution is by address or remonstrance. And so that's what we're going to do. So now I'm just going to show you real quick what this looked like in history. This is the 1831 House Journal. I'm going to show you a couple pages from this document. Zoom in here so you guys can see this. So right here, it says that the petition be referred to the Committee of Propositions and Grievances. Mr. McGaughy from the Committee of Propositions and Grievances made a report upon the petition of sundry citizens of Franklin County. So this was a number of citizens that petitioned the General Assembly, praying for the passage of an act authorizing them to raise a certain sum of money by lottery. And lotteries are unconstitutional in Tennessee, or they used to be, for the purpose of erecting a female academy in said county. And that committee resolved that the prayer of the petitioner ought not be granted. They said, no, we don't want a lottery here. But what I want to point out with you is there used to be in 1831 a Committee of Propositions and Grievances, but today we have a tyrannical government that does not want to hear grievances. They just don't care that the people are subjected to unlawful conduct of state officials. And what I'm talking about with that is much of our judiciary is absolutely corrupt. These judges ignore the law. They falsely apply the law. They deny right to be heard. They deny right to present evidence. They're terrible. We have, law enforcement officers. Many of them are fantastic at protecting the people, but like everywhere, there's bad ones. And we had that cop that basically fondled a woman during a traffic stop, made her jump up and down so he could watch her bosom. And I mean, it was just appalling on the dash cam. But we have a right to go to the General Assembly and say, this cop, just violated my rights, and his conduct was absolutely unlawful. And just to give you an idea, this is a petition. This was filed in 1801. And you can see here, to the Honorable General Assembly of the State of Tennessee. And this was actually my fifth great grandfather, Jesse Gentry. You can see his signature down here on the bottom right. And he was saying he got sacked because he didn't show up at a court hearing, and he had to forfeit $100, which was a boatload of money back in 1801. And so he was just asking the General Assembly, let me be heard in this case. So how are we gonna fix these problems? I'm gonna take you to let me just back up for a second here. This is I'm the first person since the year 1850. This is nothing radical about doing this. This is a right. This is our most powerful right, and how we reform the government. So this was my remonstrance, where I'm demanding some reforms that was announced before the entire Tennessee House of Representatives.
petitions and memorials. Mr. Clerk. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Rule 15, we have a brief statement regarding a petition of remonstrance statement filed by Representative Hulsey. It reads, I'm approaching the Tennessee House Chief Clerk on behalf of Mr. John Gentry with this petition and statement. Involves a petition of grievances. 1, unconstitutional and void statutes. 2, failure to address grievances. 3, judicial reform. 4, reinstitution of constitutionally guaranteed rights. Signed, Bud Hulsey, Tennessee State Representative.
So that was the first petition done since the year 1850. You know, there's nothing radical about doing it. It's just, you know, citizen going in there saying, I want some reforms. So here's what I want you guys to do. I'm going to go through this and show you exactly how I want you to stand with me. So this is my website. The URL is wethepeople50.com. So that's we the people, V as in Victor, 50.com. This is my website. And at the top right here is the page Resource Documents. And on here is a remonstrance. I want all of us to sign on as co-petitioners. Doesn't cost any money. I'm going to do all the work. The only thing I need is your name and your address and your signature. I give you my word, I will not share that information. It will only be filed with the Tennessee General Assembly as a citizen demanding that the right of petition in Article 1, Section 23 be restored. So this is the document. Just click on it. You can download it. And it says, I, whatever your name is, am a similarly aggrieved citizen of the state of Tennessee and assert my rights of reform and petition by address pursuant to Tennessee Constitution, Article 1 and Article 1, Section 1 and Section 23. As a citizen of this state, I too demand the right of petition be properly restored. Since that right is fundamental to our form of government, evidenced by my signature below in memorial and remonstrance by address, restoration of right of petition and remonstrance demanded. So I just want you guys fill this out, download it from my website. You can stick it in an envelope and mail it to me. You can scan it to a PDF and email it to me, or you can take a picture of it with your phone and send that to me in an email or a message. I want to approach the General Assembly on behalf of all Tennesseans. I want tens of thousands of signatures standing with me saying, we just want to restore the right of petition. So here is the address that I'm going to demand on behalf of all Tennesseans that a member of the House read this on the House floor. And it's not very long. I'm going to read through the whole thing with you here. Esteemed members of the House of Representatives of the 111th Congressional Session of the Tennessee General Assembly, I am approaching the members of the House in memorial and remonstrance by address on behalf of the people of this great state and Mr. John Anthony Gentry. We the people, citizens, and inhabitants of the state of Tennessee hereby assert our unalienable and indefeasible right to reform our government pursuant to Tennessee Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, and we further assert our right to petition by address. The right of petition and the duty of the members of this House to uphold that right, guaranteed in Article 1, Section 23, has been forgotten by our people, causing much suffering and oppression. The fact that this right has not been formally exercised since the year 1850, before Mr. Gentry's remonstrance last session, is proof positive that this right and our duty have been forgotten, and that this constitutionally protected right is therefore unlawfully oppressed, and the government must be reformed. This right of petition by address or remonstrance is fundamental to our form of government. and essential to the purpose of our government defined in Article 1, Section 1, to provide for the peace, safety, and happiness of our citizenry. Citing the United States v. Cruikshank, Supreme Court, 1876, the very idea of a government, Republican in form, implies the right of its citizen to petition for redress of grievance. To demonstrate this in its simplest of terms, a petition for redress of grievance by address. Imagine two siblings, one tormenting the other. Mom, Dad, Billy keeps pulling my hair and pinching me. Make him stop. Imagine the parents ignoring the grievance of the tormented sibling. Imagine the emotional devastation for the weaker sibling to have grievances ignored and to be helpless in such a circumstance. Imagine no redress for the offended, no apology, no making right of the wrong, and no punishment for the offender. For a parent to ignore a grievance like that is grossly negligent parenting. Yet that same negligence persists in the members of these houses as duly elected officials whose very purpose is to ensure the peace, safety, and happiness of our fellow citizens. Since citizens no longer know the right of petition or remonstrance, and because the members of these houses have forgotten our duty, a large number of our citizens are subjected to far worse torment by state officials. This torment, also known as tyranny and oppression, rights violations, and corruption, are much the same grievances that caused us to declare independence from Great Britain. These grievances, unheard, unredressed, often cause the same emotional trauma as that suffered by rape victims. The result of the negligence of the victims of the members of these houses cause emotional and financial devastation so profound. Victims turn to alcohol and drugs for relief, and sometimes suicide or vigilante justice. In the words of our President Trump, human rights abuse and corruption undermine the values that form an essential foundation of stable, secure, and functioning societies, have devastating impacts on individuals, weaken democratic institutions, degrade rule of law, perpetuate violent conflicts, and facilitate the activities of dangerous persons and undermine economic markets. This right of the people to petition for redress of grievance is not to be feared. It should be embraced. The forgotten right of petition goes all the way back to the 12th century Magna Carta. And in the 16th century, the House of Commons held that all commoners have the right to prepare and present petitions. In the Tennessee archives, there are thousands of petitions filed between 1797 and 1850, sometimes as many as 100 in a single year, all received and considered by our predecessors. But no longer are petitions filed. No longer are petitions heard. No longer are petitions decided, and no longer are grievances redressed. The Tennessee House Journal from the year 1831 evidences that citizens' petitions were referred to the proper committee for deliberation, including no longer existence Proposition and Grievances Committee. The House of Representatives must restore to the House the Propositions and Grievances Committee as a demanded reform of we the people. In the US Congress, the right of petition was recognized by the First Amendment that first came into prominence in the 1830s when petitions against slavery began flowing into Congress in a constantly increasing stream, which reached its climax in the winter of 1835. And finally, on January 28, 1840, the House adopted as a standing rule that no petition, memorial, resolution, or other paper praying the abolition of slavery in the District of Columbia or in any state or territories of the United States in which it now exists shall be received in the House or entertained in any way whatever. Because of the efforts of John Quincy Adams, that rule was repealed 5 years later. Because of John Quincy Adams, the rules were revised, and Rule 12 of the House Rules of Order for the U.S. Congress upholds this right today and provides the process still in our United States Congress, although it is little used. But in Tennessee, healing from the deep wounds of the Civil War and then enjoying the prosperity of the early 1900s, the right of petition was not needed and to never be formally exercised or never recognized by the members of this House again until just last session with Mr. Gentry's remonstrance that remains ignored. This House must recognize we dishonor those who sacrifice to establish and maintain our form of government set forth in our Constitution and the rights retained by the people stated therein, including the right of petition. From the Barons' Wars at the time of the Magna Carta to our independence war from Great Britain, our Civil War, World War II, and all wars this great nation has engaged, men and women have fought to defend the Constitution. In the words of Abraham Lincoln, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause which they gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. It is to the honored dead and sacrifice to whom we owe duty, as well as our constituents who placed us in office to provide for their peace, safety, and happiness. Consider the oath by service members in 10 U.S.C. Section 502, which, by the way, an oath I took. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Article 6, Section 2, the senators and representatives before mentioned and members of the several state legislatures shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. And our own state constitution, Article 10, Section 1, every person who shall be chosen or appointed to any office of trust or profit under this Constitution shall take an oath to support the Constitution of this state and the United States. There is a reason for oaths to defend and support the Constitution, and we must uphold every petition, every provision, including the right of petition by address or remonstrance. Do not fear being overwhelmed by petitions or remonstrances. Each member of this House is well qualified to determine what is properly before this House and what is not. Most certainly, at least some petitions or remonstrances are worthy of consideration, and not all are without merit. Do not fear redress of grievance bankrupting our treasury. Redress means making things right, and that may be as simple as an apology. And most certainly, it does not mean awarding millions of dollars that we see in class action lawsuits of our courts, which is just a perversion of our courts to enrich attorneys. It is up to us to decide, as representatives, proper redress, and that only means making the aggrieved person whole and making wrongs made right. Imagine the healing of our people that would take place if we members took time to make a phone call when made aware of grievance, to make a simple phone call and say, listen, Judge X or Corrections Officer Y or whatever state official, I don't care who's right or wrong, and I don't care about the facts at this time. If your conduct is proper, great, you have no worries. But if your conduct is wrong, you need to make things right, apologize, and correct your conduct. If I hear back again from my constituent or another constituent for the same, I will look into the facts. And if your conduct is wrongful, I'm going to open an investigation, and if appropriate, you will lose your job or perhaps be prosecuted criminally. This simple act of taking the time to make a brief phone call on behalf of constituents would solve many problems and restore trust and faith in our government. With follow-up investigation, if warranted, a great healing of our republic would commence with state officials like judges, finally held accountable. According to Mason's manual, every time a citizen complains to us about misconduct, and we all know that happens often, whether by a visit to your office, remonstrance, email, or phone call, that is an Article 1, Section 23 remonstrance. Every time we ignore these communications, we neglect our duty and violate that person's Section 23 right, and we deny them their redress. Therefore, on behalf of the citizens of Tennessee and John Gentry, let it be resolved that the House draft resolution for the members to welcome proper petitions and remonstrances, read them as on the floor as required by our rules of order, and move them to the proper committee for consideration and back to the floor of this chamber for vote if necessary. Let it be further resolved that the Proposition and Grievances Committee be reinstated pursuant to Article 1, Section 1, that all power is inherent in people and all three governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. And for the advancement of those ends, they have at all times an unalienable, indefeasible right to reform, alter, or abolish the government in such manner as they think proper. The right of petition by address or remonstrance has been unlawfully oppressed, and we the people here undersigned assert our unalienable and indefeasible right to reform our government and demand that this right once again be upheld. We the people approach the House through petition by address to be presented to the full House body on behalf of we the people by a member of the Tennessee House of Representatives, as provided for in House Rules of Order, Rule 15 and Rule 79 of Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure, Section 148, Paragraph 4. So that's what I want. I ask the citizens of this state to stand with me. We're just going in there and saying, I want this right restored. It's in the Constitution. We have the right to petition for redress of grievance, but we have no way to do it because the General Assembly now actively oppresses this right. So please go on my website, download that form and sign it. And I will submit this address to a member of the House of Representatives with thousands, tens of thousands, I hope hundreds of thousands of signatures demanding that this constitutional right be restored. So I hope you will share this video. I had hoped to keep it a little bit shorter, but I'm always long-winded. But share this out there. For people in other states, I want you to do the same thing. Start getting people together and get thousands of signatures and bring them before your general assemblies. In my mind, there are two things that must happen if we're going to restore our republic. We have to restore this right of petition. We have to restore the voice and the power of the people that is inherent in us. And we have to restore justice to our courts. And the only way to restore justice to our courts is to restore judicial accountability, and that judges have some objective oversight in the General Assembly, not judges watching judges through these unconstitutional judicial oversight agencies. So these two things are essential if we're going to restore the republic. We have to restore the right of petition, and we have to restore judicial accountability. If we cannot accomplish these two things, we are never going to be able to restore the intent of the founders and the peace, safety, and happiness of the people. I've looked at this in every possible light. I've been fighting corruption for years now, and these two things are essential: judicial accountability and the right of petition. So I ask you to please download that signature form and sign that and get it back to me. Take a picture, email it to me, stick it in an envelope and send it back to me. My address is on the front page of this if you want to send it to me an email. this petition by address to restore the right of petition by address. So thank you for watching. Please get this out there to the people. Nothing radical about this. This is a lawful process. It's a constitutional right that we have, and it's a right they don't want us to know we have, which is why you've never heard about it before. So thank you guys for watching. God bless and Godspeed to everybody out there.